between ASUU and the federal government. Because the Federal Ministry of Education has clarified that most recent and binding agreement between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of University, ASUU, was last signed in 2009. A statement issued recently on the Ministry official X, formerly Twitter handle, and obtained by Dialogue yesterday, Thursday, 11th day of September 2025, stated that the clarification became necessary following comments made by the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alasa, during an interaction with journalists in Abuja regarding the commitment to ending the 16-year statement with ASUU. The statement noted that the federal government and ASUU agreement was last signed in 2009, ascertained that the agreement remains the latest binding agreement between the federal government and the union. The ministry further explained that while a draft agreement was produced by the NIMI BRICS-led renegotiation committee that was inaugurated by the then Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, in 2017, the draft agreement was never signed by the federal government. But this clarification helped calm rattle nerves, and with such admission by the ministry be seen as an olive branch with the final resolution of this statement. And what approach should the Academic Staff Union of University take in ensuring that the binding agreements are respected? Well, these and more as it concerns the recent impasse between the federal government and ASUU is what this edition of Dialogue is all about. And we're talking about the federal government and ASUU impasse, the way forward, knowing that ASUU has already threatened that if nothing is being done, then we might see the mother of all strikes, and many Nigerians will certainly not be happy to see all of that. But to help us really look at this very issue, we're now being joined by no other person but the chairman, talking about ASUU chairman in FUPRI, and we're talking of no other person but Engineer Dr. Wilfred Okologume. He'll be joining us all the way from Sabah to really help us look at this issue, especially as it concerns the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities. Hello, Engineer Dr. Wilfred Okologume. Good morning and welcome to Atlantic TV. Is Dialogue on Viewpoint. Good morning, can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning. I can hear you. Good morning to our viewers. Good
Well,
morning,
nice
Nigeria.
having you on the show this morning. And I want us to first start. I know you heard my introduction, but I want us to first start with the statement coming from the Ministry of Education, which clarified that the most recent binding agreement between the federal government and your union was really done in 2009 and not, as been said by the Minister of Education when he said it was that draft that was done in 2021. So let's really understand, because that's a major concern as it concerns the planned strike and the impasse or the agitation that ASUU has. Let's really get more clarification. Is the last binding agreement signed in 2009, or was it the proposal signed in 2021? Let's understand.
Thank you very much. I think good enough the ministry tried to make some clarification. It bears to mind the way political officials, government officials tend to see issues. Having said that, it's quickly good that in responding to this, I'll try to link up from where we started up to that point. The first ever agreement that led to change of narrative in Nigerian university system was actually signed in 1992. That was what led to the introduction of 2% education tax on companies and leading to the establishment of TED Fund, and also the concept of university autonomy, condition of service XYZ. While also in 2009, the union also had engagement with government, which led to 2009 was signed. And key components of that agreement included the funding for revitalization, which actually proposed that 1.3 trillion naira will be released in tranches over 6 years. As at 2009, that government will release 1.3 million naira in tranches over 6 years for revitalization of public universities in Nigeria. And that is as outlined in the 2012 needs assessment report done by the same government team.
Okay.
And also, I think that agreement also had component of earned academic allowance,
Okay.
university autonomy and academic freedom,
Okay.
talked about improved condition of service. Now, leaving that phase of 2009, I'm trying to give us the history of this narrative too.
Yes.
In between 2009 and 2002, there have been other form of engagement and agreement with government. But no, there were not 10 agreements. Like, for example, in 2013, there was a memorandum of understanding between the union and government with regards to the implementation of the 2009 agreement. When government to implement that, the union had actions in 20, which led to signing of a memorandum of understanding, which is another form of an agreement. And in that MOU, it was a crucial point of it because that day came up after a strike action by ASUU then that lasted about 5.5 months, where government had committed to releasing the 1.3 trillion naira for revitalization in tranches, and government made the first release via that MOU. Also, in 2000 and I think 2017 thereabout,
Yes.
the narrative was still there. You understand? Another MOA, memorandum of action, was also signed. So, in summary, so that I don't belabor the issues I'm trying to track based on, I'm focusing on your question. In summary, the 2020, first of all, prior to that, we had the Damale-led committee. We have the committee led by Babalaki.
Okay.
Now you now have the Nimi Bricks committee.
Yes.
Now the Nimi Bricks committee, when the union was engaging that committee, the first question that the union asked them, do you have the mandate of your principal, which is the government, so that we'll avoid this issue where things are complete, then it will not be signed.
Okay.
You get the concept? Now the committee here said, yes, the mandate of their principal. Now a draft agreement was now reached between the government team and the Nimi Bricks team. But prior to that, we also have 2019 MOA, Memorandum of Action, 2020 Memorandum of Action. These are all agreements. So it's surprising the way the minister sounded. But speaking on the Nimi Bricks, a draft agreement was reached because the committee headed by Nimi Bricks is the government side. The union have a team. A draft agreement was entered, and it was meant for Nimi Bricks took it back to his principal for them to give him authorization to close it out by signing it off. That was never done. You get the point? So the basis of the discussion now is this what have been discussed severally by previous committee, like the Gamale Onosode committee in 2009. You have the Wale Babalaki committee in 2017, the Muzala Jibri committee in 2020, and the Nimi committee in 2022, all still talking about renegotiation of the 2009 agreement.
Well, Dr. Wilfred, I'll plead with you to hold on, because let's set the ball of our discussion on the issue of that very agreement. Now, you made mention that very proposal, draft proposal, 2021 draft proposal, being handled by Nimi Bricks, was not signed by the government. But I could still remember that very committee was inaugurated by the then Minister of Education, Malam Adamu. So let's try to understand. He inaugurated that very committee to, in every way, go into that discussion with your union. But there were some issues that were not resolved that made the federal government pull out without signing that 2021 draft agreement. Now, my question, because the Minister of Education recently said that the 2009 agreement was not binding. Now, what were the factors in the 2021 draft agreement that were also in the 2009 agreement that's the bone of contention that the government is still hinging on as the reason for them not really looking at this agreement and in every way holding it to bind? What is the issue there?
Okay, thank you very much again. Beautiful question. I deserve further clarification. The 2009 agreement is binding because it's an agreement. It has component that government are yet to implement over the years. So the 2022, which has been reviewed severally by different government committees, is tied towards the renegotiation of the 2009 agreement, so that the areas government are yet to take actions. What are the proposed plans to
Okay.
take that action? That's the concept of the renegotiation of the 2009 agreement. And now that's why the issue of trust comes on the part of government. Now, in that same committee, the Nimibris committee, inaugurated by the then Minister of Education, Adamu, he gave the committee 3 months time frame to complete the work and produce a draft agreement that will be submitted to government. The committee completed her work, produced the draft agreement, and sent to their principal. Fortunately, for reasons best to them, they did not sign it off. You understand? That is the aspect there. Because that document still boils under the issues of what has been existing prior to 2009. Revitalization fund, proliferation of public university, condition of service, which is key, because Nigerian academics have been on one salary structure since 2009. If you look at African average, Nigeria even low, very, very low in African average. Been on the same salary structure since 2009. A professor, what is earning in 2009 is what is earning till date, despite the economic challenges and the issues. So that was what was documented by Nimibris committee. They agreed and proposed a new salary structure in line with the realities then. But we don't understand the reasons why our government failed to sign it off, because it's their committee representing them. You understand? So it's for them to explain why they failed to close that out. And that is what is still lingering. That led to the Tinubu government, the present administration, I think in October 2024, now inaugurated another committee, the Yayale Ahmed Committee of 2024, to still renegotiate the same 2009 agreement. One, Yayale Ahmed, of course, you are aware, is the former head of service of the Federation. And the government also gave that timeline again that have since expired. And that committee have since submitted their report, the draft agreement again, to their principals. And that is the stage we are now, waiting for government to say, okay, this is what they are agreeing to in line with what their own committee have proposed. That's what the issues are. So we don't really understand why government...
What the issues... It looks as if we are now getting clarity on what the problem is, and it's all borders on the issue of the salaries, especially as they try to renegotiate it. Like you said, 2009 till 2025 is almost 20 years in the making, and the same salary structure is also being taken by your union. But anyway, let's, as much as you've given us clarity, and we feel we need to hear from the government as of the reason why they've not put paper to pen, especially in that 2021 draft agreement, let's look at other contending issues, because we know apart from that very 2009 agreement, there are other contending issues that your union is also seeking for, especially recently. And if we look at more of the issues, you talked about the revitalization of university infrastructure, which is also a reason for you people, your recent agitation, payment of outstanding salary arrears ranging from 25% to 30%, promotion arrears that have accumulated over 4 years, and withholding of a 3.5 year salary among other unpaid salaries. Now, I know all of this is what is now bringing this recent agitation. But one I want us to really look at now is the issue of revitalization of the university infrastructure. Now, we could also still know by our records that only in June this year, the federal government, especially through the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Aloasa, came out to say there's a new partnership, public-private partnership, that would every way kickstart to help develop infrastructures in the university. So my question, this started in June, undermining your recent agitation just came out in August. Would there not have been understanding on the part of your union to let government see how they can settle down on this issue of the PPP, rather than putting that among your recent agitation? Would that revitalization of the university not have been allowed to rest now? See how the PPP plan will come on board before you people now pick that up as another reason for your push or agitation on going on for a strike.
All right. Thank you very much. I really enjoy this platform. We clear a lot of issues.
Yes.
Now, you see, the concept of revitalization is tied to the 2009 agreement.
Yes.
When we talk about the revitalization fund, it is what was agreed in 2009 agreement, leading to the injection of 1.3 trillion naira over 6 years to at least upgrade infrastructure and all whatnot in Nigeria universities, at least to measure up to global standard. It is part of the 2009 agreement that government have failed to implement. So let's understand that concept. Okay. Then when you talk about, looking at an approach to also ensure revitalization, it brings to bear that I need to remind our viewers that the 1999 agreement, it was ASUU recommended to government that as part of the options to complement the funding needs, because we know government will always say they don't have all the money.
Yes, because that's what they are saying.
A 2% tax. And that was what led to the establishment of TED Fund. TED Fund is ASUU baby. TED Fund was meant to complement, that is an intervention agency. Yeah. But if you discover that since the introduction of TED Fund, over the years, government have failed on their part to fund. The only agency that is now funding infrastructure, staff development in Nigerian university is now TED Fund. It's the solely dependent source. And it's supposed to be an intervention agency, not to replace government.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
That is, if you go to all the universities, if you remove all the TED Fund projects, if you remove all the needs assessment projects, two babies of ASUU, once you remove that, delete that from any university, be it state or federal, you remove it, you know that the university are empty lands. And these two components are components from ASUU. You get the point? Now you are saying government is looking at private. If we propose education tax, which led to the creation of TED Fund, and government pulled away, making TED Fund to be the sole source of running and funding university, government pulled away. Why can't you think that if we still allow government to say, private sector, government will also pull away? Because government are the proprietors of these universities. And the word university is universal. We must measure up to what is obtainable in order client. Okay. That is basically what it is. So if you see all the narrative you just said are still tied to the 2009 agreement, because these are components already enshrined in the agreement. We are not saying anything new. Then you talk about the issue of our complaint as it concerns promotion areas. People are promoted. The fund has been budgeted for. You are not paying them. You get the point. Then you expect us to about that? No.
Okay. Well, Dr. Wilfred, I'll plead with you to hold on. We'll come to the areas. I just want us to take it bit by bit so we understand what the grievances is and where your union stand, especially as it concerns some of the issues. Now, let's still remain with the revitalization of the university, because I'm really concerned about that. That seems to be second on your list of demands, especially as it concerns the 2009 agreement and the 2021 draft agreement of your union. Now, let's come back to the revitalization. In our own knowledge at Dialogue here, we made our investigation and we found out that in February of this year, almost 300 billion naira was to be released for revitalization of universities. And funny enough, that very money has already been appropriated for in the 2023 Appropriation Act is there. So the money is there. We only learned recently that the Accountant General of the Federation is saying he needs the president go ahead before he releases that money. Now, my question now, knowing that that money is already budgeted for, is already there in the bank, waiting for the federal government, or rather Mr. President, to give go ahead, will it not also be better if you reach out to the ministry and the Accountant General of the Federation to look at that very 300 billion naira that was to be released? Yeah, you talked about in trenches, the 1.3 trillion naira. This is a huge part of that money. So will it not be good if there's a clear negotiation between the federal government and your union to deal with some of these little bottlenecks that is still holding that money down?
Yeah, thank you very much. The 300 billion you saw in the 2023 Appropriation Act is still a baby of our discussion with government on how to release the revitalization fund. But the first release government ever made was 200 million and they stopped. When we had the issues and challenges with government in 2021, we led to the mid-risk committee discussions and the rest. Part of the discussion after that post now with the ILA committee is approach on how government can resolve it. That was why also then in 2023, the then government now budgeted 300 billion. Now we waited to release for that same 300 billion. So discussions are still on, and suffice to say, I just hope government see if we are part to release the 300 billion. The comment that is coming from government officials is that money is nowhere. Even when it was, I say that money is nowhere. So likely release 50 billion. You see how funny it is. Between 2023, we're in 2025, and that money was budgeted in 2023. It's in the appropriation as a law. The same government did not release it. Now, the point is this. Will it take Nigerians to always lament for government to keep doing what they ought to have done? Yeah. You said you have budgeted for it. Release it. You want us to agitate. For you to release it and use to upgrade infrastructure and equipment in your own university, which will help to promote research capability of Nigeria as a nation and makes us to have indigenous technological advancement. You don't want to. We must agitate. Just the way you recommended that we should get to the academia. Must we be doing all that? Must you push people to do the job they are paid to do? But we will push because we are pushing, and I can reliably inform you that 300 billion might likely not be released, but a part or a fraction of it is what government are already making plans to release in the coming months or coming weeks or coming days. Okay. We don't know what it is. But however, it's good Nigerians know that the same government they are trying to use consultants for that same purpose. You see, you give and take with your process. Anyways.
Well, anyways, we hope it doesn't go towards that route. And in having consultants to be part of it, because we do know the consultant fees will be charged and a majority of or chunk of that money will go. But anyway, I'm also happy undermining you said there are feeders that the money are not there anymore, but the money will be there. And according to the Appropriation Act, that money is made already budgeted for that revitalization of the universities. But anyway, let's leave that and come now to the issue of salary arrears. I'm a bit in the dark to understand what that 25 to 30% allowance range is. If you can really help us with clarity on that, because that's another major one that seems to be holding your union against the federal government. So please really help us to understand that 25 to 35% increase. Hello? Okay, let's see how we can reconnect with Engineer Dr. Wilfred Okologume as he gives us a breakdown of all that seems to be. And we're looking at the recent impasse between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities. Okay, we have him back, and let's return back to him for him to really give us a clear understanding of what that salary arrear seems to be, because it's also a major part of the issue that ASUU is holding against the federal government, and most likely would push them into strike. Hello, Dr. Wilfred. Yeah, I'm happy you're back. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me now. Hello?
Yeah, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, better. So give us clarity, especially as it concerns that 25 to 30% salary.
Can you hear me? I can hear you loud and clear.
We seem to be in the dark, especially as it concerns that demand of ASUU.
Yeah, I understand the question here. On the 25 and 35 increment, we rather call it an award. It was an award from government. Where, if you recall that, yes. Yeah, it was an award by government across all sectors of public service.
Not just the academic sector itself. Right? Okay.
Yes. It's not peculiar. It's how across the entire civil service and public service. Okay. Government gave that award for salary adjustment across the board. Then now what we're saying is that other public servants and civil servants have been paid their arrears for that 25. But we are a little bit worried that those of us in the academia, we have not been paid the arrears of that adjustment. We are not saying anything out of the blue.
Okay.
We have awarded it to us of federal government. Even some state government, including Delta state government, adopted the same thing. And they have also paid the arrears. Bayelsa state government, so in short, the entire federation adopted that adjustment because it was based on when the subsidy removal XYZ.
Yes.
That was why the award. It was an award, a wage award from government.
Okay.
You understand? And it's part of the reasons that we in ASUU we are being careful government because we say whatever it is that you are giving to us, it must be based on CBA, collective bargaining agreement, so that when we sign it off, if you fail, we know what to say. Now, the wage award, you have awarded something. We are not complaining. Now, you have settled other sectors, the same federal workers. You pay them, you refuse to pay us our own arrears, and you want us to agitate for it. And those persons, they don't agitate. So it's a simple issue. It's not something that I feel should warrant a discussion. You understand? It's not something that's the explanation of that 25-35 because it simply means for those in the professorial career, it's 35% wage award. Then for those from senior lecturer down, it's 20% adjustment. And the table is there, and that is being implemented is years of it. Because as at when it was announced and entered into, it has an implementation date.
Okay.
So they have paid their arrears to other sectors based on the implementation date, but they are failing or probably they are delaying to respond to our asks, and our members are agitated. It's as if we have a different class of citizens and different class of workers. So our members are agitated and say, no, we must remind government to also do this just the way it has done to others. So that's the 25-35.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that clarity, because we're almost wondering if that was a separate part of the discussion, the initial 2009 and 2021 draft agreement. But let's come back to some other major issues, because with the way you've talked now and what you've stated, it baffles Nigeria that have there not been any window of discussion between ASUU and the federal government prior now or before now? Because I could still remember the last time your union went on a strike or mother of all strike was in October of 2022 when you called off that last strike. So my next question is, since that October 2022 till date, have there not been high levels of meeting between your union and the federal government to resolve most of these issues, rather than making it this long and now coming to the fold and now resulting to an issue of mother of all strike? Let's understand, have there not been consultative meeting between your union and federal government to iron some of these issues rather than bringing them up now?
Yeah, thank you very much. Of course, they have been. Because like you mentioned, the last time we had an action and discussion with government, 2022 deliveries committee, to show that there's evidence of consultation with government after that. That was why government inaugurated the Yaya Ahmed committee to renegotiate the 2009 agreement. And this committee, of course, Yaya Ahmed, the former head of service of the federation,
of the federation,
is also one of the pro-chancellors appointed by government in one of our own
He's from the academia.
And the government's decision to set up that committee was also due to the expiration of the timeline the government gave to the Nimibris committee, and they needed to keep discussing going forward so that we avoid the industrial unrest. And we have been engaging that committee, and I think in December last year, the whole talk about the negotiation of that committee ended in December last year. So they were meant to return back to their principal on the second week of December and come back to the ASUU team to say, okay, based on what they have proposed with the committee as the options, this is their principal government is going for. Because before they started, ASUU asked, I hope you have the mandate of your principal, not the one who will start. You will not set up another committee to keep reviewing. They said yes. You understand that? And they brought the evidence. So a draft agreement reached. Because the basis of that committee, the committee agreed that they will start their discussion from where Nimibris stopped.
Okay.
You understand? Which the government gave them the go ahead. So a draft agreement has been reached. They are supposed to get back to the union at second week of December last year. They never did. So the union had to now pressurize when we had some protests earlier in the past, so many press releases. That was why they now submitted their report to their principal in February this year with a timeline to return back in few weeks. Now we have been waiting February, nothing is happening, keep waiting. Now the union had to remind them. And that was why before our last next meeting at Sokoto, now government now hurriedly, seeing that pressure might likely come, government now hurriedly set up another technical review committee to review what their own committee has submitted. That was the committee that met on the 28th of August. Okay. And they are meant to give us what they are offering based on what has been reached with Yaya Ahmed committee. And we are yet to get that impact. But one thing I must give to the government, that technical committee that is set up to review, trying to, in line with our proposal to remove the bottleneck, had the Minister of Education, the Minister of Labour, the NUCES, the Third Fund ES, you have the Chairman of Salary and Wages Commission, the DG Budget, the Minister of Finance, because we said we don't want a situation where at the end of the day, you say, okay, it was my officer, my subordinate that did what was not asked to be done. So that's why in the wisdom of the approach and what government proposed is that whatever you want to review, use those that are part of FEC, the Federal Executive Council. Yes. Let them be part of it so that we don't go over this again. Yes. So that's the current state of the discussion. There's no signal yet on what they are looking at. And that's why we just need to keep reminding them, because the truth, we are also parents. We have our wives and children in this university. We are not happy with the standard of activities. And the truth is this, once you lower your standard of activity, it damages the image of our country. So we are not happy. We want things to work well. And that is why if it will take us to be those that will salvage education area, we are ready for it. Because presently now, Nigeria is still budgeting below the UNESCO standard. And Nigeria is a treaty. We are part of the treaty of UNESCO. In line with the budgetary provision percentage for education. And when we are saying education, we are not just saying universities. Yeah. Education from primary school up to tertiary institution.
Okay, well, it looks as if you've given us clarity on that. But irrespective of that, Nigerians are still agitated and a bit not certain to know where the direction or the pendulum will swing next. And the reason I'm saying this now is the last time we heard anything from ASUU was last month when they gave us that very great warning that there will be a mother of all strike. Now, my next question is, where are we at the moment? Let's try to understand. Since that very utterance from the Minister of Education and also the clarity being given by the Ministry of Education on account of that very agreement, I know the last time your union sat down was towards the ending of last month. I could still remember it was in the University of Benin, and we had that Professor Igbofu come out to talk about the issue of ASUU. But where are we at the moment? Is there ongoing negotiations with the federal government in averting that mother of all strike? Or are we just still with the impasse of no negotiations, nothing on the table, and most likely we might run into another lengthy industrial action? Let's understand where we are at the moment.
All right, thank you. I think where we are at the moment is not too different from what I just said last, that the government have set out their own technical review committee to review what their committee have submitted to them. So we are still waiting for them. And it's good Nigerians understand that we don't enjoy strike. Strike is usually the last resort. That's to tell you there are successive activities. The good news is that we have some non-government actors. That is goodwill of some notable Nigerians that are also mediating on this issue. Okay. And we are listening to everybody. because we don't want to shut down the system, but it's usually the last resort. And that's why Nigeria should know that we shouldn't be looking at the effects, but we should be looking at the cause. Strike is an effect of something, and we should focus on the cause. You understand?
Yeah.
It's the failure of government that is leading to the strike. So strike is usually not the issue. You understand? It's usually not the issue. The issue is what we have discussed up to this point. So here now, I cannot tell you what will be the next action of our union. But the union will went and look at the way, the pace at which government is going. The union will definitely decide what it is. Like I mentioned, strike is usually the last resort. And if since 2012, there have been discussion or renegotiation of the 2009 agreement up to this point, nothing has been done. But it's terrible because part of the component of the 2009 agreement is that every 3 years, so 33 years, it will be reviewed. And nothing has been done. And don't you think that's also a breach of an agreement entered? I have entered an agreement with you. We signed it off together to say every 3 months, 3 years, we'll be doing ABC. We are still not doing. That's also a breach on its own, but we are not talking much on that. We are just talking implement those components and let us put the end to it so that we can advance. And note another new aspect was I think we have not discussed it, the proliferation of universities.
Private
you have universities, you have not been able to fund it, you are establishing more. It's not a constituency project. Of course, we hear the government made a pronouncement. Because Nigerians are aware that we have been canvassing against proliferation of university. The government has made a pronouncement that they are putting a 7 years ban on establishment of
more
a public university. For us, it should go beyond a presidential pronouncement. What we proposed was an amendment to the NUC Act to put standard conditions. If you want to establish a university, you must provide the funding and lock it in CBN that will sustain our university for the first 5 years incubating period. Not setting up a university, then you will not be looking for third fund to come and do what you are supposed to do. You understand? Yeah, government have made a pronouncement, which means if government change tomorrow, another government will make a counter pronouncement. So we are still reminding government, it's beyond that pronouncement. They should also go through legislation and make it an act of parliament. But you see the funny thing about government, Nigerians know that we're canvassing against proliferation of university. But when the pronouncement was made from the affect meeting, they never gave credit to ASUU. But it's not a problem. Like we said, we should focus on resolving the cause, not the effects.
Okay, now let's still remain with that, because another major issue when we talk about proliferation of more universities is the issue of funding, and which has always been a bottleneck, especially as it concerns not just education, but almost every other sector of this great country. Now, let's look at the issue of funding. Yes, that has also been a bane while we're having brain drain, especially as it concerns more lecturers in our universities going overseas for greener pastures. Let's come to the issue of funding. Do you feel government should hand off funding if they are not able to handle it? What would be the best way to go at the moment? How? Because we look at many other universities overseas. Yes, we do know, like the United States of America, the government brings some certain grants to these universities for them to live on. But basically what they generate is what they live on. So is it not time that the universities will be let to handle the monies they generate and use it to sustain themselves? Would that not be the best way forward, rather than going through one agreement to another agreement, reviewing a previous agreement to end up reviewing the present agreement? Let's look at all of that. Would that not be the best way to go?
Now, thank you very much. These two things you just mentioned were also component of the same discussion we say with 2009 agreement, 2009. Because the concept of revitalization fund was to bridge that gap in funding, yes, take the standard up to a certain level, then so that the university will now have the capacity to be attracting grants and see how we leverage on that.
Yes, yes.
Now, governments, it's like you are building a house or a company. You want somebody to help you up to a point. You must take it, and you are the proprietor, you must take it to a certain level where people will know that you have made effort to show that you own this thing. That's where the concept of revitalization complaining about inadequate and inconsistently. and you've not been able to fund what you have. You are establishing more. That was what led us to. So all these things are interconnected. Then you talked about allowing universities to use their IGRO. That is
Yes.
where the concept of university autonomy that is part of that same document came in from. And you discover that that led to one of the reasons that the union resisted the introduction of IPPIS,
Okay. Yes.
because
In,
IPPIS
in payment.
eroded this concept of autonomy. And also, we also told government the TSA policy, yeah, the TSA policy, let me tell you the truth, my brother. It is one of the things that are hampered development in public universities. Because most funding agency, when companies and foreign agents fund research or particular via grant, it is meant for that dedicated purpose.
Yes.
So, which means the fund should be accessible to the researcher to deliver on the mandate of the funding agency. But with the concept of TSA, all fund comes in, goes into a single account. So it's no longer dedicated for any purpose. So everybody goes to that pool and take. And that is one of the bane why you now see that since the advent of this adoption of urban policy or in the education sector, we are finding it difficult to even pull that and make meaningful sense out of researches. So most of the grants now that are coming are now individual grant by individual researchers, no longer institutional grant. Because when the fund comes in, to get access to that fund to utilize it based on the mandate of the funding agency now becomes difficult. And that is why we explain to government, you cannot run a university the way you are running the civil service. You cannot. Because university running is university gave us a concept of what happens overseas.
Yeah.
Why can't we create that kind of environment here so that what happens overseas can still happen here? In those climes overseas, companies bring their challenges to the universities and they fund university researchers to come up with solutions dedicated to them. Now we are not doing that. But you now see a situation because of this poor funding, we now have Nigerian academia that are leaving the shores of Nigeria overseas to provide solutions for them. That is why we are still foreign dependent in terms of technical solutions to solve our problem. And if you go there, most of this novelty, these beautiful ideas, this new technology, this new concept have been developed by Nigerians over there. You can read it. Is it the medical line? We have a lot of Nigerians. Why can't we create that environment here so that we will not become the hub of Africa if we cannot become the hub of the world? It's not the hub of West Africa. Let's leave Africa first. We are not just leaving Nigeria to Niger Republic, Benin Republic, because of better welfare. So at least let us have short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Short-term, let us upscale our activities to become the hub of West Africa first. Then as we progress, we can be competing with South African universities to still be among the top South African universities in Egypt so that we can measure around the top in Africa. Then from there, we could build into the global landscape. But for you to compete globally, then you must try to provide the same enabling environment that those people thrive in. That is basically what it is.
Okay, well, anyway, as much as you've talked a great deal about the issues that is bedeviling the tertiary institution and also that your association is agitating for, I want us to leave that and come to another major issue that seems to also to be on the front burner of education sector, and that concerns Nigeria. Now, there's this recent move by JAM to lower the score mark for admission into our different tertiary institutions. Now, ASUU has come out with many talk, especially as it concerns that, and they've kicked against it. No surprise, there was this issue of post-UME to help also screen those that have already passed into the different institutions. Now, let's look at the issue of putting or lowering the marks. Does it make any sense lowering the marks at the moment when we're talking about poor academic values of our students in these universities? Where does ASUU stand on that issue that the federal government is trying to lower the marks to get people into our different tertiary institutions?
Yeah, thank you very much. ASUU stand is very straightforward. ASUU stand is using that concept is eroding the autonomy of our university senates, because via University Statutes and Establishment Act, the university senate that has the power to set out the admission criteria and academic standards in a university. You cannot just sit somewhere, gather all vice chancellors together, and you give them that this is what A and B should do. And that's it's quite alarming. But that's why you see some notable universities, I will not want to mention names, they don't even go in line with what was proposed by JAM. We have some universities that over the years they don't go beyond 200.
Yes.
Even when JAM is proposing, I think 150 or thereabouts. But it
150.
tells us that, it tells you the beauty of this narrative. It tells you the way our educational system have degenerated up to this point. Because I remember in the past, for those who have 200, they struggle to get university education. It therefore means that today we are admitting those that score 100. 100 over 400, you admit them into tertiary institution, maybe polytechnics and the rest. Man, that is far, far below average. Far, 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 far below 100. It tells us that the problem is not even just left for tertiary institution. The problem now is even coming from the secondary schools. And thing I must say, I might not want to blame the students completely for the poor performance, but the truth is this. You know, JAM now is CBT, right?
Yes.
Now, when you talk about digital literacy, and they are two different things.
Yes.
Now that I can use my smartphone, you understand? And I use digital tools. And the way JAM is done now is through CBT, which means the students will be using computers with mass XYZ, not their smartphone. Now go further. How many of our secondary schools have access to ICT lab, where the children will be prepared up to the point of writing JAM? Yes. You recall the last while that was written, my brother, we had situations, we saw videos and pictures where students were writing exams in the dark with candle lights.
Yes.
How do you expect good grades to come from such kind of environment? And that's why you see, no matter how poor the performance of JAM was, you see that students that still attend secondary schools that have good infrastructure and they have teachers on ground still perform. We see students, schools celebrating 350, 330, 330, and so on and so forth. Which simply means once you put the enabling environment there, you have a dedicated and well-motivated workforce, you will get a beautiful result. But when you fail to do that, you get what you get, because the truth is this: you cannot plant cocoyam and you want to harvest potato. It is what you prepare for that you get. Now, these students now will not come to us. We will not belabor ourselves to try to push them up. That is why, to bridge that interface, university now conduct pursuit TME. Yeah. You understand? Yeah. And that is why I'm happy that the government have recently aligned to some of our propositions, where we said the focus should no longer be about access to education. We should now be focusing on what? Delivering quality education. That should be the focus. And when we say quality tertiary education, my brother, if Nigeria were to be running well in terms of tertiary education, not everybody should be in the university, because in a developed clime, the technical schools are there to provide dedicated skills. The polytechnics are there to provide dedicated skills. The college of educations are there to provide dedicated discipline skills. And you have the universities that provide the dedicated skills. Everybody has our own role. But because we are failing, and you now see government upgrading to universities, not in line with the original mandate. Government upgrading college of educations to universities, not in line with the original mandate. How do we now aggregate these diverse skills in our economy and see how we can advance? Because the truth, I believe in your company, in your TV station, not everybody have the same role. You need people to play different roles, but they need to be trained in those aspects to make the entire system efficient. But now we have a system now that is not tailored towards that, and we shouldn't keep quiet. Nigeria should join us and clamor that the future of this country now belongs to the hands of Nigeria. We must decide and determine where we are heading to.
Well, anyway, I feel where we are heading to now is a total conclusion on our discussion, because time is not a friend, and we really need to let you go. I do know you have a series of meetings, but you needed to oblige us and really have to discuss this issue with us. Undermining, it's not like you are predicting doom, but you don't know where the pendulum will swing next, whether there will be a strike action or not. But in all the same, we need to really thank you so much. And I'm talking of no other person but Engineer Dr. Wilfred Okologume. He's the present chairman of ASUU at FUPRI, right here in Delta State. Thank you so much for your time, and we really appreciate your time. And we might really call upon you again if there's any new development as it concerns that impasse between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of University. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. Thank you for your time with us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Well, anyway, that's more like a wrap on the show today. Dialogue, let's get your comments, contributions, and reaction, especially as it concerns our discussion today. We're looking at the recent impasse between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, whether there will be a mother of all strike as being stated by them just last month, or will the government, just like what Engineer Dr. Wilfred said, will make a move, knowing that the Ministry of Education made a move just recently saying, well, sorry, what the Minister of Education said is economical with the truth. The truth is that, yes, there's an agreement between the federal government and the ASUU in 2009. Like I said, let's get your reactions. What do you feel about this? Should the federal government go ahead and in every way implement that agreement, be it the 2009 or the 2021 draft agreement? Should all of that come for us to avert another industrial action that will put our children at home? All of that reaction, we'd love you to send to our different social media platforms, and most certainly we'll honor them. But for me now, it's a quick goodbye on Dialogue. Let's see how we'll make a return of Dialogue come next week. But you know, Viewpoint still continues. Trending and the news will come on the hour. Bye for now.